Welcome to part 3 in our DIY Fireplace Makeover Series. This is the final part in the series and I'm really excited to bring it to you. In case you're new here, I'm Rachel, the blogger behind the Confused Millennial, and this channel is all about helping millennial moms live luxe on less. And how we are doing that this week is by tackling a massive fireplace renovation all by ourselves. Well, I guess it's not a renovation, it's more of like a makeover. If you missed it, part 1 of this series, I shared with you how we took our dated 1970s red brick, brought it up a little bit more in style to this nice glossy white finish. I also shared with you in part 2 how we transformed our fireplace mantle into this very on-trend warm honey tone. And today I'm going to be sharing with you how we redid our fireplace hearth tiles using paint. I know there's a lot of concerns out there. Number 1, painting tile? Are you crazy? Like, how's that even gonna come out? When I first heard the concept, I thought there was no way it would look good. And then add in the fact that we are literally painting tile in front of a fireplace led to a whole slew of anxiety about fire safety for me. So I want to make sure we tackle all of those questions and concerns. I watched a lot of YouTube videos and tutorials beforehand and nothing prepared for me for the amount of mistakes I made along the way. And I'm going to walk you guys through all of them and share with you a few different tidbits about weighing the pros and cons of painting on your tile stencil using a foam roller versus just spray painting. So I will show you what all of these different mistakes looked like along the way and talk to you about some of the pros and cons so you can make a decision for the finish that suits your lifestyle best. Now, let me tell you, when I had the idea to paint the fireplace tile, I definitely had my fair share of anxiety. I mean, was this even safe? It is paint in front of an open flame. I went over to Sherwin-Williams. I talked to the local manager there. I ended up talking to Sherwin-Williams corporate who donated the paint for this project and gave them really clear details about what was happening, where this paint was going, that would be in front of the fireplace. They showed me that using their Extreme Bond Bonding Primer and their Emerald Urethane Trim Enamel paint would be totally good for this project, which leads me to the next point in this. We live in South Florida. The likelihood that we will even use our fireplace once or twice a year is pretty low, and meaning that this is not something that is running for hours on it at a time, multiple days throughout the year. So for me, making sure it had a really great aesthetic finish was my top priority. Based off of the reassurance I got from Sherwin-Williams and also how little I know we'll be using this, I felt totally fine tackling this project with paint. Other supplies you're gonna need for this project, and I will link everything in the description box below, include a medium grit sandpaper as well as a power sander. You're gonna wanna start by preparing your tile surface by sanding it down and scuffing it up really well. You need a little bit of texture for the primer to adhere to. So go over it a few times, put your elbow grease into it. Once you're done sanding it, you go ahead and wipe it down with your microfiber cloth. If you have any dirt, like we obviously do here, feel free to wipe that down with water, TSP, any sort of solution that will eat away at any of the gook or grime left behind. And once you've gone ahead and sanded it down, wiped it all super clean, you are ready to prime. To prime, we use Sherwin-Williams Extreme Bond Primer. It works really great with tile surfaces. You need that super strong hold, obviously, when working with something more slick like tile. This is our original surface. For whatever reason, my camera cut out and I don't have footage of the actual priming. This was after I primed. The good news is the priming process is the exact same as the next step, so you guys will be able to see that in a minute. As you can see here, for the most part, it covered up everything pretty well. You still will see a little bit of our grout lines here. Once this fully dried, I took a super fine sanding block and gave it a quick once over. The reason for that is the smoother the finish when it comes to painting your tile, the better the end result will be. After sanding, I wiped it down with a microfiber cloth and then we were ready to paint. We used Sherwin-Williams Emerald Urethane Trim Enamel and a charcoal navy for our paint. So this next process that you guys are gonna watch is the exact same process I used to apply the primer as well. You're gonna need a paint tray and a high density foam roller. And then all you're gonna do is roll it on. I found that working with this paint in a really thick layer allowed it to adhere the best. I found that it got a little bit almost stampy, or that it would peel back up on itself while rolling out if the paint had gotten too thin, which leads me to my hindsight is 2020 and why this project turned into such a nightmare. Nobody had told me when they gave me this paint that it actually has a 30-day cure period. I mean, who knew paint had 30-day cure periods? That seems excessive, but apparently it does. And not knowing that information, it led to a lot of issues when it came to my tile stenciling later on. So whatever paint you choose to work with for your project, please make sure you fully know how long its cure period is. It makes a big difference if you are noticing the paint peeling back up on you while going through this initial application process. My guess is, and I'm not an expert, is that you probably have quite a bit of a cure period. So please keep that in mind while you're doing your own project. And I also applied a second coat of this paint a couple days later. Once our hearth dried, or at least so I thought, because remember I didn't know about the 30-day cure period, I was ready for my tile stencil from Stencil Revolution. I started off by just taping them down onto our hearth. Do not make the mistake I made here where I only put a piece of tape on a portion of each side. I would recommend fully taping off all 4 sides. This is a long and tedious process, you guys. I got tired and my foam roller at points actually rolled off the edge of the tile, got some paint over the edge. Another problem I had with our particular hearth is the grout lines that were on there, as you guys can see, are pretty uneven. They not only were uneven in leveling, but they are also uneven in width. So it was pretty challenging for me to get a perfect lineup of where my tile stencil went, which is actually why I chose these instead of a tile stencil with a continuing pattern between the squares. My whole idea here was that typically pretty hard to go from dark to light, and so I thought it would be a good idea to prime the tile stencil before doing the paint. Do not do that. I will show you guys what all of these look like in a minute. Mistake number 2 I made was the excessive amount of bleeding of the paint color while using the tile stencil. This is going to be the biggest hurdle for pretty much everyone watching this video. When it comes to applying a tile stencil and painting is the bleeding that can occur. So this is the method I want you to use for the best finish if you choose to use traditional paint with your tile stencil. And what you're gonna wanna do is dip your foam roller into your paint that's in a paint tray, roll it out pretty well, and then go ahead and actually roll it out a few times on the paper towel before rolling it out onto your tile stencil. I know that sounds like a lot of steps, but this is going to ensure a really good smooth finish with minimal bleeding. Whoever said that painting tile was gonna be easy lied to you guys. This has been a struggle. I went as far as taking out a can of spray paint, so I want to show you guys the difference. All right, so this was the very first one I ever did. As you can see, the bleeding is really bad. I ended up sanding it down, which is why it has kind of a chalky finish. I also tried spray painting, which I kind of really like the look of this. I held back because I obviously hadn't taped everything off, but since I already decided to repaint all of this navy, I figured why the hell not, see what that would look like. And then I used the proper technique with the paper towel and rolling it, etc., etc. And it does have a lot less bleed than what we've seen in the past. I decided not to go with primer. That's kind of that one. So I'm pretty much deciding at this point if I want to go with the spray paint, obviously making it even, not this kind of faded look, or painting it. Quick note on bleeding. It's bound to happen, and that's totally okay. As you guys can see here, these are actually the ceramic tiles that are in our kitchen. These are hand poured, professionally done, normal tiles. You guys can go ahead and buy this pattern. It's not painted on. And as you can see when you look closely, there is a little bit of bleeding. Bleeding is a natural thing that happens, so don't worry about it being totally perfect, because that's not what it actually looks like in real life. But obviously you don't want to have so much that it looks like just botched the job. So if you do have any sort of bleeding that you do want to go back and finish up, just grab a paintbrush and your base color and go over it by hand. That's totally up to you and how much of a perfectionist you are and whether or not you go back and touch it up. I only did it for a few of the tiles. So here are my thoughts on painting using a tile stencil. It's a long, tedious process. I had a lot of anxiety working with the tile stencil because some bleeding, like I said, naturally occurred. And then if I went ahead and put that tile stencil down onto a new tile and it had even a little bit of paint on the backside, I now had a mess up on my new tile I was going to work on, and I just didn't love the process. Rolling it out on the paper towel, going back and forth over and over and over again until I got the full rich white color. It just wasn't my cup of tea. The finish was kind of a harsher finish, and that is when I got the kooky idea to see what it would look like if I just spray painted the tiles. And you know what? I actually kind of liked it. In fact, I kind of loved it. It felt full and rich, but soft at the same time. It looked a lot more like my true tiles in my kitchen. Obviously that led to, is spray paint even safe in front of an open flame? So I did a quick Google search and found this high heat resistant spray paint that is made for like barbecues and stuff and can withstand temperatures of 1200 degrees, and I felt totally comfortable using it. I had found another Florida blogger who actually used it to recoat the interior of her fireplace black. And I was like, well, if she's actually spray painting where the actual fire is gonna go, and she used her fireplace a few times and said she had no issues. She felt totally safe using the spray paint for the tile in front of the fireplace. I did all of these different experiences, from priming to rolling to spray painting. I had to reset my base. So I went ahead, sanded everything down, hit it with some TSP, wiped it all dry with a microfiber cloth, and then repainted everything in the charcoal navy, let it sit for a few days, and then I got to spray painting. The hardest part about spray painting using tile stencil is obviously going to be the off spray. So with this, I had to make sure that everything was taped off really well. I used a drop cloth, a lot of old newspapers, paper towels to make sure that not only were all of the edges of my tile taped down really well, but that the surrounding area was taped down really well. So you wanna remember that when you're using spray paint and you hit it down, there's gonna be some offshoot coming this way. And so if this paper towel that's covering the surrounding area isn't safely secured, that pressure of the spray paint is going to push it up and you're gonna get off spray over here. So make sure that you are taping down your tile, taping down the surrounding area, and then weighting it down with more paper towels or newspapers, or even use a drop cloth, which is what we did. I put a drop cloth into the opening of the fireplace as well as on top of the surrounding taped down newspapers and paper towels once I got about one tile out removed. Even with having to lift up and secure the surrounding areas, I found this process to move way faster since spray paint dries so much faster than traditional paint. This entire area took me only 2 days, working for about 2 hours spread out over those 2 days. Since this is an area that gets no foot traffic and I will just be styling it with pillows and different baskets and things, I decided not to go with the top coat. If you are painting tile in like your bathroom or anywhere that has foot traffic, I would definitely recommend putting on a top coat so it lasts, all of your hard work lasts as long as possible. And this is our finished product. I had put a couple pumpkins down, not knowing about the 30-day cure period, and it led to some smudging. I touched up the blue already a little bit. I still have to go back and touch up the white, but this is what it looks like all spray painted together. And I have to say, I really do love how it all came out. And make sure to hit that notification and subscribe button, because next week I will be sharing with you how I'm decorating this entire space for Halloween. And if you missed it, make sure to go back and check out my Dollar Tree Halloween decor DIYs. There's 7 of them, plus a really cute baby costume. And if you missed any of the videos in this Fireplace Makeover series, you can catch up on them here. I redid the brick and the mantle as well as the hearth tile, so you don't want to miss any of that either.